Our story starts when Damian was just a little baby. He had your typical baby eczema in certain parts of his body, but it wasn't intolerable. And then I started to feed him, fruits and vegetables and rice and a little oatmeal. His whole head, all the way down to his feet, covered in these red bumps. Just red, rashy skin. And I actually had to tape socks to his hands because he would just tear at his skin. It just consumed his whole entire day. Local allergists were able to detect through the skin testing with a prick on his back that he was allergic to all of the items in the spectrum. There was certain environmental ones, there was a ton of food ones, everything he reacted to. And so he said, there's not much we can do for him right now, but I recommend you give him a teaspoon of Benadryl a day and hydrocortisone, which is the steroid cream. And I kind of looked at him and I thought, this can't be the answer. This is not a quality way of life to live. The Benadryl makes you all tired, and then Basically, too, the allergist said, there's nothing we can do. Just hope that he can grow out of it. I couldn't take it any longer. It was like, this is just not right. And somebody said to me, there's this really neat technique that has worked for me with wheat. It's called Budenpraat's allergy elimination technique, NAET. The first treatment was the body balance formula, and it was on right after his first birthday. I remember this, and he wouldn't walk by himself. He'd always hold my hand, and he was always wobbly, and I couldn't ever, he just wouldn't try on his own. And after that treatment, we sat in the room after she had done what she was doing and left, and we got to the top of her stairs because you have to walk up this huge flight of stairs to get into her office, and then you have to walk down them. And he let go of my hand and pushed me away and said, no. And he walked down the whole flight of stairs without holding my hand. And that's when I knew. I was like, this is it. I could see that immediate change right then.
Oh, orange juice. Here it is.
Now here we are, 3 years later.
Tomatoes.
He can eat sesame seeds, he can eat eggs, he can eat dairy products now. It's amazing. There was the plastic treatment that she had done, the chemical plastics. We couldn't sleep. Every night he'd wake up, at the most 2 hours he would sleep for me, and he'd wake up just crying and kicking, and he was just so uncomfortable he couldn't sleep. And so we were so sleep deprived on top of it. I called the office. I'm like, we cannot sleep. I can't take this anymore. Something has got to be going on. And she checked him and said, we're treating him for plastics tonight. That night, he slept through the whole night. And I woke up the next morning and I couldn't believe it. And then over the course of the next 3 days, his face was just cleared. And then the only thing I had to work on was the neck down. It was really bizarre, but finally his face had cleared. It was like, wow. So it wasn't just the foods, it was the chemicals and everything that you can't avoid in this world that we are constantly dealing with on a daily basis. And that is the reason why these allergists couldn't help us. What can you do? You're living in a toxic world. I'm glad that we have NAET to help us through this. I thought, no way. There's no way he's ever going to go to school. I couldn't leave his side. I worried every day that something was going to happen. Now it's like, okay, I can let go of his hand and he can become the individual that he needs to become. And I can finally have relief in my life. I don't cry every day. I cried every day of my life. It was really hard to see him go through that. And so now it's smiles and happiness and comfortness. Everything has just been, it's been amazing what I've seen. And he can actually go to people's houses and roll around on their floor and be a normal kid and ride down slides at the park. And whereas before we couldn't, I'd have to inspect the whole park. I had socks in his hands no matter where he was if he touched something that was harmful. Going into a grocery store, can't pass in that aisle because he'd start coughing, and now, you know, he can be a normal kid, and that is just awesome. So thank you, Dr. Marilyn, for giving us the best thing in life. Don't question how it works or why. Don't question in your head if you're considering doing this for yourself or for anybody else. And once you start to feel better, you'll realize it was the right thing for you to do. I highly recommend it for everybody and anybody.